We got a surprise starter for the 2024 college football season.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football HC. Is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin coaching your legacy today. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams, and it is game week. Week one of the 2024 college football season is upon us. Yes. The Oklahoma Sooners play real football this Friday night against the Temple Owls at 6 p.m. Friday on ESPN. And Jay, we've got our first official depth chart.
First game, first depth chart. Let me preface this for all of you listening right now. This will not probably be the depth chart against Tennessee. This may not be the one for Tulane or Houston. We expect fluidity when it comes to this depth chart, but the exciting thing is there are some players in positions that we did not expect this early.
Now, let's start with Jayden Jackson here, man, because, listen, I've been as big a proponent of Jayden Jackson as maybe anybody except his mom and dad, because as soon as I saw this dude's tape in like January of 2023, I thought, how is this kid just a 3-star prospect? And 2, I want him. And D, Todd Bates do your thing, because you don't see guys that are pushing 300 pounds move the way that Jayden Jackson does. And so when he was leaning Texas, I was like, dang, man, really, Texas? That's going to really suck to have to go up against him every year. And then when he committed to Oklahoma, it was like when CeeDee Lamb got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, I was pumped. I was like, yes, my dude came to my team. This is exciting. So I have been really trying to pump the brakes on expectations because I was hyped the moment he got to Norman, because defensive tackle is such a hard position to transition from high school to college football, from college football to the NFL. It's just tough. The game changes. The level of physicality changes. The talent that you're playing against changes. And it's a position that's difficult to make that transition. So when you hear the reports coming out of spring ball that he's having a really good camp and he starts in the spring game. Yes, Dejon Terry, he didn't play in the spring game. Dominic Williams hadn't arrived yet. And you're like, okay, well, those two guys will probably be your starters along the interior. Yep. And then you hear in fall camp that, okay, Jayden Jackson is continuing to have a really, really nice fall camp. He's like all the guys that are getting to watch practice to a greater extent than even some of the other media members. They're talking about Jayden Jackson. And you're like, still, I'm trying to like temper my expectations and my enthusiasm, because you don't want to over expect for a true freshman, especially at defensive tackle. But lo and behold, we've got a true freshman at defensive tackle that's going to be starting. Now, a detractor might say that's a bad thing for Oklahoma, but somebody who is a optimist like myself, who loves the kid, loves what he's about, loves the work ethic, the mentality, the intangibles, the quickness, the physicality, the size, dude, I am pumped to begin the Jayden Jackson era in Norman.
Yeah, it's vindication for you too, right? As someone who's been hyping him up literally since he signed, well, he committed and then signed or whatnot. So this is just kind of an example of, look, I told you this dude was going to be something special. Even better, Dominic Williams, they had him mic'd up at practice not too long ago, and he was literally talking about Jayden Jackson being not only a freshman All-American, but All-American. And Dominic, his teammates hyping him up.
Yep. Can't
be mad at him. I love the fact that they're going to give him the chance in Temple to prove himself very early. Looks like G-Baby, Grayson Halton, he's not getting his weight up to 300 yet, but he'll be able to push and get an opportunity to play there at the 3 technique with them. I think that was the thing that shocked me, was that they're putting Jayden at the 3, right? I was expecting more of a Dejon Terry, Dominic Williams setup with Dominic running the 3 technique and then bringing Jayden in there at the nose. No, it's going to be Dominic at the nose with Jayden at the 3. So obviously his moves have been going, and he's getting it. Now, David Stone's sitting here at 295, but granted, this is another thing. If you've seen that depth chart, all of those weights are probably not accurate for the first game. We'll probably get all of that after the Temple game when everything in the system's updated and all the true information comes down. But look, it's encouraging to see that we've got all these defensive linemen at 300 because, a certain somebody said that we weren't ready in the trenches because of that.
Yeah, we'll talk about what Nick Saban had to say about Oklahoma in the next segment. The other part of this is 2 years ago, this would not have happened. You would not see a true freshman in the starting lineup, let alone maybe even in the two deep. But Brent Venables and his staff, I think, have learned, like, hey, if guys earn opportunities, let's put them out there. Let's give them the chance and see what happens. Because it could be great. It could be not great. But you can still make adjustments if you need to. What are some other takeaways that you had as you looked at the first official depth chart?
When I was digging into it, I think there was two things that really jumped out, especially on the defensive side. And I kind of want to start there first. One, Reggie Powers is in multiple positions, right? Another freshman. And George Stoya tweeted out not too long ago, there's about, 17 or 18 true freshmen on the depth chart for the Temple game. Yep. Love that we're getting them that experience early, especially because, no shade, but Temple's not very good. So this is a great opportunity for them to get out there, get actual game speed tape, to see what they need to fix, see what things they need to adjust in preparation for the Houston game. But seeing Reggie Powers not only in the cheetah role, but also at the strong safety, that's huge. Then the other thing, as we're talking safeties, you got that three-headed monster at safety with Billy Bowman, of course, starting, but it appears that Peyton's going to end up starting as well with Robert Spears-Jennings rotating in, and I'm sensing that we're going to see a lot of three safety high if they're going to do it that way.
Yeah, could totally see that happen. And I think you're going to see both a lot of Robert Spears-Jennings, a lot of Peyton Bowen, and I think they'll deploy them situationally too, even when they're rolling with two safety looks. What was also interesting was that cornerback. You don't really have a settled situation. You got Kenai Walker and Woody Washington still battling, and then you've got Des Malone, Gentry Williams, and Jacoby Johnson still battling as well. Gentry obviously dealing with the shoulder stinger that he suffered in fall camp. That's going to be something to continue to monitor all year long, but Jacoby Johnson's kind of played his way into the competition. Des Malone was brought in here to add competitive depth as well. And everybody's really excited about what they have there. I think that's going to be one of those positions that, as you mentioned, Jay, that we're not going to have a settled answer on for some time. I think it might be a rotational thing that we see, or depending on the matchups, how they feel like a corner might play against another, wide receiver. It might be fluid throughout the season.
Completely. And then, of course, so that's two positions that we have, basically two oars where it's like all three guys are going to potentially play. Same thing with the will linebacker position, right? You're going from Kip to Lewis to Deshaun McCullough. And we all know McCullough's a little bit banged up, but the expectation he'll be back in the next couple of weeks. So, technically against Temple, you don't have to play him, but that's the cool thing is you got three dudes that's going to go out there, get those real game reps, and have the opportunity to see what they are. And so defensively, that looks good. Now, offensive side of the ball, John, excitement, little shock. Did not think that Michael Hawkins was going to be put as the second string quarterback that early, right? That got me. Javonte Barnes, I think he might be back because we've been hearing about him, but I think he's back. And then lastly, we knew Nick was a little bit banged up. He's been dealing with hamstrings for a bit. Didn't really hinder him that much last season, but they're going to play extra cautious because I think he probably is our quote-unquote number one wide receiver. Brennan Thompson's going to get the start. Oh, boy. Wow.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of speed on the field against Temple with Brennan Thompson and Deion Burks playing. And I think seeing Taylor Tatum kind of right ahead of Caleb Hicks is kind of intriguing. He's only been on campus for a few months now. I came in as a summer enrollee, but has already made a strong impression. To what you mentioned about Michael Hawkins, I think some of this is Casey Thompson not really being available for practice much, but also Michael Hawkins has just been flashing and very, very impressive to everybody that's seen him so far. And he's got the pedigree to play high-level college football, and he's got the ability to do so as well. So it seems like that's the way that they would want to go in the event that something happened to Jackson Arnold, that you get Michael Hawkins out there, you start getting him experience, and you see what you've got there because the athleticism is legit. The arm talent is legit. And I think he's going to have the opportunity to be big time. The other notable thing here that we'll finish on is on special teams. You got starters in all of your return situations. Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, Jalil Farouk, Deion Burks, Des Malone are all mentioned as potential returners for both punt and kick returns.
We finally are going to get Billy Bowman as a return man. Something that we've been wanting.
Yep.
We're finally going to get him. But I got why we didn't probably do it in the past. You didn't have the full depth that you needed just in case of an injury you didn't want.
Yep.
Now you do. With all the young guys, you can do it.
Yep.
And then Peyton Bowen at punt, we've been all wanting that. We're getting it. But there's one last thing, John, we've got to point out. The one thing that everybody's been waiting to hear about. And they're going to be mad that we put it this far deep into this segment. Tyler Kellner is going to be the starting kicker right now.
Maybe. Or.
Because there is an or on there.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those, we'll just ride the hot hand. We'll give
or foot.
Kellner gets the first opportunity out there. And if he misses a gimme, then they'll go to Zach Schmidt. I think it's going to be a competition throughout the season. But I don't love that. I'd like to have a little bit better answer at kicker. Hopefully they don't ever kick. I just rather them not kick field goals. Let's just say that.
Yeah, stay perfect on extra points. I think we're good at that point.
Yeah, just be perfect on extra points and never kick a field goal, and I'll be happy. But Nick Saban had some thoughts about Oklahoma and where they stand going into the SEC as compared to Texas. Nick. Why you throwing cap already? The season hadn't even started yet. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Hey, Locked On Sooner fans. I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you are going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners? Kind of wild, right? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camp and handling school scholarships. You control every critical detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? Here's the best part. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want, when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Sooner fans. Use the promo code Locked On College Football CFB, all caps, inside the game store and receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. So to download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today.
College football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before week 1 kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. You can get it all from Locked On's stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know all in one place. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So legendary head coach Nick Saban, probably one of the best of all time, if not the best of all time, is now analyzing football games for ESPN and also in an advisory role for Alabama. So let's just keep it 100 over here. Yeah. A former head coach for Steve Sarkisian, who was his offensive coordinator at one point in time, had this to say about both Texas and Oklahoma. He said, Texas was built like an SEC team. Sark built Texas like an SEC team. They have big people up front. They're physical. Watching Oklahoma this offseason, they are one of the most athletic teams in the country, but they are not as big and as physical up front, Saban said. Jay, I'm going to let you go ahead and react to this first.
So did he not watch the game where Oklahoma played against Texas and Oklahoma was pushing Texas around in the trenches most of the game? It doesn't feel like he watched that game, sure, I understand that he saw how Texas was pushing around his team in Tuscaloosa in that game. And they won that game at his house by double digits. First team to do that since the beginning of the Nick Saban era. So I totally get it. But that's the thing that I don't get. Like I ran the numbers on this, right? On the offensive line, Texas averages with all their players based upon the rosters that we have today on ESPN up until, because I'm going to use the data he has, 313 was the weight average for Texas. 311 on the offensive line was Oklahoma. Kind of interesting. It's really, really close, right? Now, defensive line, there was a little bit more of a discrepancy. Oklahoma, if you include your edges, averaged 275. Texas averaged like 300, just over 300. But they also have two dudes with young Mitchell, Sadir Mitchell. He's 350 pounds. And then Bill Norton's 335. But outside of that, they had 10 guys over 290 pounds. Guess how many Oklahoma has on the defensive line over 290 pounds? I'll give it to you. 8. So the number's not that far off from each other. We may have a few smaller edges because, young players, but as far as the trenches go, we're not that far from Texas. And I promise you, Dominic, Dejan, and Jayden Jackson, as we talked about last segment, it's going to terrorize the heck out of them, just like they will everybody else.
Now, and if you're watching last season's Oklahoma team, I don't think it's quite the same up front, because you did add Dominic Williams, you added Jayden Jackson, David Stone, you have Grayson Halton, who's going to emerge. You added a Caden Woolard at defensive end. So I don't quite know where he's going with this, that if it's the team that he watched last season, you mentioned it, they stopped Texas from getting a yard 4 times because of their trench play. I don't know what else you need to say. I mean, the Dejan Terry thing kind of flies under the radar a lot of times because he's a nose tackle and he's not going to put up a lot of stats. But that was a very impactful transfer portal addition they made in the 2023 offseason. And he's still going to pay dividends this year. And then you added another big-time transfer portal addition in Dominic Williams. And then you added blue-chip prospects, David Stone, a 5-star, Jayden Jackson, 4-star. Yes, true freshman, but have all the talent in the world to go be impactful players. Let's also not forget that Grayson Halton was a 4-star prospect in the 2022 signing class, originally committed to Oregon, flipped to Oklahoma. So this is not like it's just a bunch of like average Joes that Oklahoma is going to be putting out there along the defensive line. These are really, really good players that have a chance to make this a really, really good defense. And that doesn't even consider Oklahoma's linebacker core that is one of the best in the nation. Oklahoma's secondary that's one of the best in the nation, led by Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears Jennings. So I don't get exactly where Nick Saban's coming from in this front. It just seems to fly on the same wavelength of Texas is ready, Oklahoma's going to struggle, and everybody's just been waiting for this moment to gas Texas up. They've been waiting for Texas to have a 10-win season, win a Big 12 title, go to the college football playoff so they could spend 8 months talking about how great Texas is, because Texas is the Dallas Cowboys of college football. They generate a lot of traffic and a lot of revenue for a lot of people. So you got to talk Texas football.
That is true. And everybody's going to want to keep, like you said, gas them up as if they're just invincible. I totally understand why people are high on Texas, right? You've got an offensive-minded coach that's going to have his offensive line and his quarterback that's been in his system now going into his 3rd season. Totally makes sense.
Yep.
Why do you think we're high on Oklahoma? You got a defensive-minded coach with his top player, Danny Stutzman, which is the architect of that defense, going into his 3rd year in his system, and you're returning some of the most production in college football. Top 5, number 3 in the country, 86%. Yeah, of course we're going to be high on this team. Like, it doesn't make any sense that people think that it's ridiculous for Oklahoma to have that, as if offenses have dominated that much. In the SEC, defenses have always dominated. They shut down these high-powered offenses. And I think that Brent Venables is building his team, similar to what he did at Clemson, to start slowing some of that stuff down.
Well, and what won Oklahoma the game against Texas last year was the defensive side of the ball. It was the 2 interceptions. It was the sacks by Ethan Downs. It was the goal line stand. That's what won them the
fumbles,
game.
right?
Yeah,
the fumble calls, right?
Yeah, they held Texas to 23 points. They held that Texas offense to 23 points. Gave up a kick return a blocked punt return for a touchdown. So that made all the difference in the world. It kept the Sooners in the game so that the Oklahoma offense can go have a chance to win the game at the end. So listen, I get that people are going to be high on Texas. I'm not discounting that one bit. But if you're sitting here on August the 26th and you're talking about Oklahoma as if they're not going to be a team to be reckoned with, right, a team that's going to make things difficult for the SEC, then I think you're just not wanting to look deeper into what Oklahoma's got. And that's okay. You don't have to. That's why we're here. We're going to tell you Oklahoma's ready. This is a team that's been building to the SEC. When Brent Venables got here, he got here and came in with the sole purpose of getting this program, not just the football team on the field, but the facilities, the administration, everybody ready to go contend in the SEC. And now we're going to get to see how ready they are, but I think they're going to be plenty ready.
Yep. I totally get that too. Like I said, surface level is what most people are looking at. They don't dig into the details. They don't dig into the weeds. They assume what they believe and they go off those assumptions. And not being used to Oklahoma having a good defense totally makes sense. I can't even be mad at it. Like, there's no argument you'd ever hear from me saying you're terrible because you won't put. No, we're not used to Oklahoma. Heck, most fans aren't used to Oklahoma having a good defense. So when the defense shows up and shows out, you're going to be like, oh, wow, this is a new thing. Kind of missed this. It's been, years.
Where'd this come from?
Right? It's been a while.
That's right.
We do this again.
It's been about a decade since somebody named Brent Venables was last coordinating this defense. But hey, we're going to get into a week 0 recap. Why is John looking a little bit more right about the ACC and Jay maybe not so much? We'll discuss coming up next on Locked On Sooners. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list to do for work or list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check everything off your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for the home. For me, it's articles, the honeydews, work stuff, Locked On Sooners. I've got all kinds of things going. Sometimes you don't want to forget the most essential supply, which is a 5 Hour Energy shot. This is a low sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12 or 24 pack. You choose the flavors, and it is delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Again, that's LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order at 5hourenergy.com. So, Jay, we had a very eventful week 0 of college football action where let's just start off the top. The first game of the season, the Florida State Seminoles, fresh off of a undefeated regular season and ACC championship win, left out of the college football playoff because Jordan Travis got hurt, and then had this revenge tour in mind, drops their opener to Georgia Tech 24-21 in Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah, I'm a little upset they embarrassed me in public like that. I take offense to the fact that they let Georgia Tech push them around in the trenches like that. Hey, man, shout out to their head coach. Is it Brent Key? I got to shout out to him. Coach Key, you killed it, right? That team was prepared, and they gave Florida State hell the entire time. It was literally trench work. They were pushing them around. They had the holes open, and it was fascinating because before the game, everybody was hyping up the defensive line at Florida State. It just sounds so familiar with others that we've been hearing about, hyping up everybody around them and then downgrading the other ones on the opposite team. I digress. Everything that they were saying about Florida State was exactly what Georgia Tech was. Georgia Tech, they came prepared. It just looked like they were ready to play. And even with their type of offense they were running, I mean, Hayes King out there was showing out. DJ Uiagalelei struggled. He kind of looked like himself at Clemson, right? So it's kind of looking like it was a flip-flop for him right back into what he was there. He had like 4 passes past 10 yards the entire game. You got wide receivers that are burners. You got to launch that thing. Same thing with their running game. I figured the running back Benson was going to, Benson would catch some pass off. The running game was going to do more. It just, nothing worked out for them at all in this game. And it was just, they got pushed around. And I think that's the thing that shocked me the most.
Yeah, it's impressive that Georgia Tech was able to go get that win. Listen, I'll grant Florida State a little bit from the the jet lag situation, but Georgia Tech had to deal with it too.
Right.
But
there's no jet lag.
He had his players ready to roll, you know? And here's the thing. Okay, jet lag does matter, but there's not that big a time difference from the East Coast to Greenwich Mean Time. That's not that big of a difference. It's like, I want to say it's maybe like 4 or 5 hours, and you're playing an 11 a.m. game. Like that 11 a.m., like you're playing an afternoon kick. So it's like a 4 o'clock start time, 5 o'clock start time, if I've got my time zones adequately remembered in my mind. So that's not that big of a difference. And you probably got over there several days early to deal with the jet lag. They say for every hour difference in time zone, you need a day of time difference to recover. Well, again, it's not like Dana White in the UFC or the WWE going and putting on a promotion where they're, you know, having fights at 3 a.m. so that everybody back here in the States can watch it at 7 p.m. No, the college football powers that be set this thing up to where, yeah, it was 11 a.m. kick locally here, but it was an afternoon time slot over there. So the time zone difference, the jet lag stuff, that should have been minimal, to be honest. Florida State just got beat. And the DJU situation, like, I think you hit it right there, man. He's going to have to start uncorking some balls and taking some chances, because that's not going to win Florida State games by just playing check down you. That's not happening.
Yeah, and the way that Georgia Tech plays ball, I mean, Hayes King averaged like 9 yards per pass. DJ was at 7.1, and that's, to me, is bad. And again, Benson had 9.8 yards per catch. I thought him coming from Alabama was going to be a game changer at wide receiver for them, an additional piece they needed after losing a player like a Keon Coleman, right? They weren't really leveraging anybody in this run. I'm looking at these running backs. They averaged 3.2 yards per carry, while Tech averaged like 5.3 yards. And granted, that's what Georgia Tech's offense is, because it's really hard to get players there, but you would have expected that Florida State would have been able to push them around more and a lot better, and they couldn't, right? And even this is the worst part about it, John. Florida State didn't turn the ball over. They just got muscled.
It's crazy.
There wasn't any mistakes, silly, nothing. Nothing. That's it. They just got beat up.
Yeah,
pretty bad.
And the other notable game of the weekend, SMU. I say it's notable because they're now a Power 4 team, but SMU went to Nevada to play Nevada, and needed a 16-point fourth quarter to overcome a team that's been terrible the last couple of years. So not a great start to their Power 4 time, but hey, it's first game of the season. We'll see where they end up. But the ACC almost had a pretty devastating first week. Although Georgia Tech, I mean, they might be a player now in the ACC. Yeah,
and Nevada was the last time I think Nevada was any good was when Colin Kaepernick was there. And that's been like a good 12 years.
Forever ago.
Right? Forever ago. And it's just fascinating just to see that they've been bad. And SMU, I think what bothered me with this is, how didn't Preston Stone have the job already locked up after last season? Right? Rumor, I'd asked some people about, I was like, wait, why is Stone out the game? What's going on? And they're like, oh, Lashley planned on going with 2 quarterbacks this season. I'm like, wait, what? I could have sworn Stone was like the dude last season. He was pretty solid all year. No, they decide they're going to go with 2 quarterbacks because Stone, one, did look terrible to start the game off, but at the same time, I expected him to be like the main quarterback. Well, I guess he's now in a quarterback battle with his backup. I mean, he threw for 3,100 yards last year, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks. And in this game, he looked bad. Like, Nevada was like, I guess they were wearing camouflage at home, right? With the blue field, even though the field wasn't blue. We weren't at Boise State. It was just brutal for the way that Preston Stone was playing. So I'm hoping that Lashley's got a plan to, I guess, help his quarterback or replace him. But the 2 quarterback system, man, you can't do that and think that you're going to be successful. I guess against Nevada you can, and hope that you can figure out who's going to be the one that steps up. Hopefully now they think that Stone has stepped up and he can just be confident and play. But yeah, that game was, but it was another good close game. Yeah, we got good close games just about every game, except for, I mean, I didn't stay up for Hawaii. I wasn't about to stay up for that game.
Yeah, nobody's going to be watching Hawaii football from the Central Time Zone. The other notable note, this one's not on the football field. This is on the recruiting trail. 2025 5-star athlete, safety, wide receiver, outside linebacker, whatever you want to call him. Jonah Williams does
Jiu-jitsu
follow
master.
through with the Steve Wiltfong bomb and commits to Texas. Apparently, that's the one prediction that he was fine with being out there. But hey, Texas gets a great player, a dude that is just really, really, really good at football. If this prediction or the commitment sticks, they're going to get a good one. We'll see if it sticks.
Yeah, I know he's an athlete. Like he's really good. And I went back and watched his tape just to kind of remind myself he can play all over the place. Now I know that there was a quote that came out from someone in Texas. It was a journalist. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but he quoted him, and basically Jonah said that, "Oh, I'm going to be able to start there really quickly. They don't have much depth at safety." I'm just like, wow. I know that was the accusation about, why Fasusi picked Oklahoma, which it was because he wanted to be beat up by Bill Beatonbow. But it sounded like Jonah just said it out, the quiet part out loud, and said, no, I'm going to go in there and start because they ain't got nobody there.
Which is not the most gracious thing you want to say as a incoming freshman. That's not going to, I mean, who knows? Maybe those guys will love it. The coaches will love it because it's going to push everybody else. I don't know, but it certainly would rub me the wrong way if I was on that depth chart at safety. So we'll see, man. It's going to be a fascinating one. The recruitment is going to be ongoing. Probably Oklahoma is not in it, I would imagine, at this point. But you never know, dude. You never know where this is going to go. He was a longtime Oklahoma fan and opted to play some games, and that's okay. He's got his recruitment. He's allowed to do that. But Oklahoma is still pretty well set at safety now. In the future with Omarion Robinson, you got a commitment, and that dude looks like he's going to be a big time player. This isn't to say that Oklahoma wouldn't take Jonah Williams if he decided to come, but if he doesn't, Oklahoma is still going to be pretty stacked at safety moving forward, courtesy of Brandon Hall. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Go check us out on the Locked On Sooners Insider Program by texting SEC 2024 to 405-817-6711, where you can get 25% off your first month after a 2-week free trial period. Again, the Locked On Sooners Insider Program, that's where you can ask Jay and I questions. You can give us mailbag suggestions for the show where we will answer your questions and we'll interact with you on a regular basis as well. That's SEC 2024 to 405-817-6711 to get 25% off your first month. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you do your social media. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll catch you then. Boomer.
Sooner.